Oh hey, didn't see you there. You just caught me in the middle of deciding on a new hobby. I'm either deciding between rearranging my spice rack or getting ready for Christmas way earlier than necessary. Now, on the one hand, I can set a precedence with how I arrange my spices with comfort and ease in mind. On the other hand, the potential to be thrown in a mental asylum. See my issue?
Getting into anime is one of the strangest concepts to really wrap yourself in when you really think about it. You're entering a worldwide phenomenon from a standpoint likely unique from how other people start up, whereas the hobby itself was subject to stigma and judgment for a good deal up until recent times. Even if it's steadily becoming a normal, accepted style of art in the public eye, there is still a lingering discrepancy with how its past and reputation holds up to your personal standards for your time management.
It's like getting a tuna sandwich from Subway. There's technically nothing wrong with it, and it's slowly socially getting more acceptable, but there's still a small part of your brain that says, maybe I should have a palate cleanser nearby because I don't know what kind of shit I'm going to be digesting.
I think every anime goer of my age has had some stigmatic thoughts of some kind when it came to watching anime to a point where sometimes this would be necessary. Nowadays, watching anime is beginning to be another simple hobby for people who consume media, much like how the lifestyle of playing video games opened up for other demographics. But there is that lingering limitation you'll see online or in your daily life where you could be judged for watching shows like High School D by D, Nisekoi, or even seemingly safe shows like Sweetness and Lightning.
It was often the case of ignorance or a preconceived notion that came with the territory. Not only was the style really unusual for any normal person, but there's just a basic stigma that came with the idea that cartoons are for kids. And with shows that ran on children's networking like Dragon Ball and Pokemon, it's not hard to see why.
For kids' entertainment, the most infamous licensing studio of the hobby, often the punchline to many jokes, or usually the joke itself.
Oh hey, that's why that sounds so familiar.
For as bad as 4Kids was, it was one of the more important gateways to introduction when it came to exposing anime to children. Shows like Dogfighting, Cocaine Rat, Metaphoric Death, and Violence is Always the Answer. But even then, though some of us can look back on it nostalgically, for a time, admitting to liking or even just watching 4Kids was like publicly announcing your own Scarlet Letter. It's not hard to see why. It had watered down writing to keep a moral high ground for kids, odd and often out of place edits to the animation, and an unbalanced sound design across all of its programming.
I'm putting down everything about Cappy Town and everybody. Oh, Kirby! That's cool. Finding the right words to describe Kirby isn't too easy, you know.
Even for nostalgia's sake, they were borderline unwatchable. Maybe that's why my high school classmates still remember me.
It's interesting to look back on the arguments of the anti-anime people. The two most prominent cases they had against anime were it was for kids and it was too weird, perverted, or out of the box for it to even be taken seriously. Well, if 2016 YouTube taught me anything, well, I would have to question the educational system of the platform.
While you don't hear those arguments as frequently anymore, and though the popularity and accessibility of anime rise every day, it's not completely gone, or would I argue that it will ever go away fully. It's just nature that some people won't like it, and that's fine. It's more up to you whether or not you let the judgments and the dissenters get to you.
I myself kept my anime watching on the down low all throughout high school and even from my own family, all just to avoid being labeled things that I fully embrace nowadays, like weeb and degenerate. I find that in a combination of not caring and finding people who do like you for who you are and embracing your interests can do wonders for your mental health. And look at me now. I make dumb videos on the internet on the very topic. It's fucking great.
I won't act like this is how it'll always turn out, everyone's experience is different, but I do think the best advice I can offer you in joining this fandom is to just go at it at your own pace and watch or read whatever you want. Privy to Shonen? Dragon Ball, One Piece, and My Hero Academia are good starts. Want a good suspenseful thriller? The Future Diary, Higurashi, and Death Note got you covered. Want an overbearing fantasy adventure story with slight elements of magic, tons of girls, and all taking place in a completely different world? Boy, do I have a list for you.
And that's why you're really here for this video. Where do you actually get into anime? Well, the short answer is anywhere. The long answer is anywhere.
Everyone's journey is different. For some, it starts off from the 4Kids stuff, while for others, they don't dive into the genre until adulthood. And if you stick it out, don't worry about the destination because we all end up in the same relative spot. While it's good to know a starting point in your taste, it's not entirely important. Aside from the advice of just watch what you want, the sheer variety of shows just engulfs any worry of quote-unquote not enough to watch. Heck, it may even pose the opposite problem. Recommendations: go on any Reddit thread or online forum and just ask for whatever criteria you're looking for, but don't forget to suit up when diving in those comments. When it comes to recommendations, don't expect every answer to meet your ideas 100% because everyone's taste and feedback won't always align with yours, which is fine. When it comes to it, you're looking for a starting point, not a commitment. You can always come and go between what was recommended to you and what you might find on your own, and go from there to develop your own trash taste.
Here's a handful of some of the first anime I ever watched, in no particular order. Now, as you can see, they range from high quality content to the lowest common denominator, but I watched them all the same. Now, does that devalue my opinion and my criticisms as someone who critiques and analyzes anime culture? Yeah, kinda.
But there is a strong importance of taking the good with the bad. Even if you watch the greatest show on earth, what good will it do if you can't supplement it with something of jarringly divisive quality?
Less mental anguish for one thing.
Whenever you're faced with trying out new things, be it something hands-on or passive like watching anime, an important factor to consider is that it won't always be a smooth road ahead. In the efforts of exploring anime for the first time, it may be beneficial to understand the style, story, or genre by looking at two similar shows and where they would stack up and why they are what they are.
A good example of this is Fullmetal Alchemist and its remake Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. While the first Fullmetal Alchemist isn't bad by any means, how it may stack up in the long run of anime as a medium will strongly differ to its enhanced counterpart. In a way, it will only be slightly inferior.
While there are clear pros and cons to both shows, the flaws of one will be more noticeable than the other. This doesn't cheapen the character or the content of the worst one, it's just a different experience. Another and more obvious instance of this is Bleach and Buso Renkin, or as I like to call it, Diet Bleach, which sounds a lot worse if Bleach wasn't a show. For as long as Bleach is, its longevity in the anime collective conscious keeps it comparatively relevant as those of older classics, be it for an impactful story of its time, its personage as a nostalgic property, or its own influences on the modern anime landscape. Now compare that to Buso Renkin, which is pretty much the same story painted a different color. Where Bleach succeeded in its identity, story crafting, world building, and overall personality as a hard-hitting shonen comedy, Buso Renkin's performative curve in its debut went wayward to be in a spot of unoriginality, a closer emphasis on comedy rather than action, and just a case of wrong place, wrong time.
Now, does this mean that Buso Renkin's worse than Bleach? In my opinion, no. Again, it's all about pros and cons. Would you rather watch a lengthy and long-standing classic that defined a generation, or a shorter time capsule of an action comedy series that really was a product of its times? There really isn't a wrong way how you opt in watching these shows.
But if you don't want to go through the trouble of comparing two extensively long shows that will take you days to accomplish, you can always turn to the hive mind known as the internet. Remember, suit up. Online cloud is marketing at its full frontal force. There's no better advertising than people talking.
That's how I got my nickname in high school.
From My Anime List to Crunchyroll to YouTubers, if you're searching for a good starting point, they'll give you their opinions whether you ask them or not. My Anime List is many people's go-to anime archival system to help them keep track of what they're watching and reading. And it's just as helpful in giving you the latest news, updates, editorials, and user bias all the same. Mal's user review system is handy for understanding where a community stands on a show, but at a cost of not necessarily being entirely beginner friendly. 7 of the top 10 right now are sequels, 4 of which are Gintama.
That's like if 4 of the top 10 on IMDb are Harry Potter sequels. Something's not quite adding up. It's probably the plot to the Harry Potter sequels.
As with a lot of sites that track this sort of stuff, people's biases and leanings will show up in their discussions, as they should. Being passionate is as relevant of a critical thinking tool as neutrality, but if you want a good recommendation, don't look towards what's the best, but rather what's popular.
High school was right all along.
Now, hear me out. Specifically for the beginning of the life in weebdom, Mal's selection of popular rather than top anime is that for a reason. They aren't the greatest, and some of them haven't aged too well, but they themselves are important, relevant shows that continue to thrive in the community even years after airing. Shows that you would have probably heard of, like Death Note and Demon Slayer, and shows that you haven't thought of as beginner-friendly at first, but do make sense when you think about it, like Parasite or Your Lie in April.
Alternatively, you could always go to your friendly neighborhood YouTubers, who I'm sure always have a refined and well thought out recommendation for you.
Hunter x Hunter, Golden Time, Bokurano, Ping Pong the Animation, Sakamoto, Kaiji, Mob Psycho 100, Banana Fish, and JoJo.
I'll tell you what this is. This is the, guys, I have good taste in anime.
Fuck off. Bro, these are good. What do you mean? How?
Like,
These are
guys,
genuinely
guys, you want to know what personality I have? Absolutely no fucking personality.
This is
Oh, I'm sorry that I don't like incest, Gone. Is that what you want to see on my list?
That's the least trash opinion coming out of Trash Taste.
Now, I'm not immune to horrible takes or biased outlooks either. What I may recommend may not gel well with what you're looking for. What I am saying is that all other viewpoints are wrong, and only my immaculate taste can help you find the right opinion.
Whenever you go out seeking the thoughts and opinions of a particular person, there's a good chance you're gonna know what they're about, their preferences, favorites, and overall ideas and values in anime and production. The real benefit of anime reviewers and YouTubers is having that distinct voice that lays out their thoughts, and sometimes they may even surprise you with an opinion.
For example, I unironically like Akame ga Kill. Now, some may call this a guilty pleasure, but let's call it what it really is. Incriminating in 84 countries.
But you can only get so much out of a single person's thoughts and opinions without having experienced the shows and movies that they're talking about, which, keep in mind, is still a weeb's taste, which, again, Subway analogy. And, well, if you were to take my personal advice, think of it like this. Imagine you're a kid. What are kids known for in the presence of an authority figure? Well, if you need to learn how to swim, leave the nest, or work for Nike for pennies a day,
just do it.
It's what I did. There's no better experience than finding shows yourself. It's one thing to have a show hyped up for you, but when you can personally find it on your own, you never quite know what gems you might dig up. Even the horrible shows have an interesting feel to them when you uncover them. Like, dang, I had free reign over this garbage all this time.
You really don't need too many resources or a lot of recommendations. They are helpful, but the minimum prerequisite to getting into anime is just to have time and a strong willingness. It's not really a commitment, but more of a new means of seeing a new hobby in a different light.
The beginning of an anime journey is quite a unique feeling, for as you further get exposed to anime situations, tropes, archetypes, and cultural awareness, it helps broaden your own preferences and maybe even some of your ideals. But no matter where you end up, it's always the starting line where it truly feels like it's a new world. It sounds silly or corny, but nostalgically looking back, my own beginning was such a unique rollercoaster of the deeply good and the hilariously bad that I can't imagine it any other way. It's a passive hobby, but as a novice weeb, the experience I accrued over the thousands of hours I absorbed feels just as character-affirming as any other pastime like sports or learning a new trade. Am I doing anything worthy of note? Probably not, but to be fair, that was just the beginning.
And those are the ins and outs of starting anime. I hope I could consciously explain the feelings that come with the territory of what is essentially a very minute part of a weeb's life, or even help start your own. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to my new hobby. making this edible.